Hey guys, Eric with Blue Line Fishing. Welcome back to the channel. Your time's important to me as always. And what we're going to do in today's time is we're going to talk about 3 great baits to target those shallow water fish. Even in warm weather, fish stay shallow. Not all of them, but some of them. And we're going to talk about 3 great baits to target those fish. So let's jump into this. 3 baits to help you target those shallow water fish. And you know, during the summer months, even when that water is just boiling hot, there's a certain amount of bass that stay shallow, just like they do all year round. And not just small fish, but big bass too. Yes, some will move into deeper water and those deeper water haunts, but a lot of them will stay shallow. And I've had a lot of success over the years targeting those shallow water fish because I feel more comfortable fishing shallow. And this is a system that I've been able to use to usually put some fish in the boat, not just numbers, but some big fish on a regular basis. So we'll start out with the first bait here is a stick bait. You can use a Yum Dinger, you can use a Senko, whatever kind of stick bait you like. But the way I like to use this is Texas rigged, weightless is how I'll start. And a lot of the lakes that I fish around here are really full of weeds. I mean, we've got milfoil and coontail moss and eelgrass and all that stuff. But this is a bait that I can use to, well, the way I usually do it is I'll start out throwing really shallow, 2 foot of water on those weed mats. I can fish up on top of the weed mats with this bait. I can work it down in the holes. I can bring it up on the edge of the weeds and let it drop off. And then I can actually work little pockets and everything else and not have to worry about getting hung up. So I'll start out with a stick bait. First off, see if I get bit, and if I do, obviously I'll stay on this pattern with this. If not, then I'll move to the second bait, which we're going to talk about. So we talked about using a stick bait and working really in the weeds and in that thick stuff, but if that doesn't work, what I like to use next is a rattle trap. I mean, I like the rattle trap, and I also like the cotton cordell spot, and I've got the Strike King red eye shad. These 3 are my favorite. But of all these, the one I really like, and I think it's kind of missed by a lot of guys that fish lipless crankbaits, is the floater. You can see it says floater right here. This is a fantastic bait to throw in warm water conditions in shallow water because it helps you stay up off the bottom just a little bit, avoid a lot of those entanglements and things. But what I like to do, start out with that stick bait. That doesn't pan out or don't get bit very much. I'll switch over to a lipless crankbait, and I always start in the warm weather months, like I say, with a floater, and I'll work the edge of the weed mats, I'll work the edge of that cover, and this is one I can actually bring down and reel it kind of fast and just kind of subsurface and try and keep it just above the grass or weeds that I've got there. And then I can also switch over and just use your standard lipless crankbait that sinks, and obviously it starts whenever you begin your retrieve, and whatever depth I'm at, say I'm in 4 foot of water and the weeds are 2 foot, I can bring this up over the top of that real quick, or even let it just tick the top of it as I'm fishing those and rip it out of the grass if need be. But I've had a lot of success, like I say, fishing these over the years, and I've got some footage here that I'll show you of some fish. It was just it was the end of last summer, using a cotton cordell spot like this, a gold one, off-colored water, but it was above some weed mats and did really, really well. Once again, it's something that you can use as a search bait if you don't do any good in those weed mats, and you can still stay in and fish around them using a lipless crankbait. But stick bait, then the lipless crankbait, and then we're going to go on to the third bait here. Check it out. So the third bait I like to use in this 3-step approach is a creature bait. And when it comes to creature baits, this is a net bait pack-a-crawl. And the reason I choose this bait, because you can see it's got these long flapping claws on it. I like a bait that's got a lot of commotion to it, a creature bait that's got a lot of commotion to it in the warm weather. And this bait has it. You can use whatever one you want, but if you do one, say like a Reaction Innovation Sweet Beaver, it doesn't have as much commotion to it. I think it's a little better suited for cold water conditions, but creature bait of your choice. And what I like to do is I'll go back, I'll hit those open pockets and holes, trying to punch this down through with, say, like a 1/2 to a 3/4 ounce tungsten bullet weight on there, rigged Texas style, obviously weedless. And then if that doesn't work, I will switch to a lighter weight, like say a 3/16 ounce bullet weight that's it can be tungsten or lead, either one, but tungsten is a smaller profile. But I'll work those outside edges in the perimeter of the weeds, weed mats, and those clusters of vegetation with this creature bait. But once again, I would highly recommend one that has more kick to it like this does, because I think the commotion in the warmer water draws a little bit better reaction from the fish than one that's a little more subtle, like say a beaver style bait. But you fish the one that you are most comfortable with. As far as color goes, if it's stained water, muddy water, I try and go with my natural tones, and then I do a little bit lighter tones if it's clear water. Just like we were talking about with the rattle trap, I'll use a chrome pattern for the clear water to stained water, and then if we got muddy water to dirty water, I like the gold. But the color's not the big thing. I think it's the presentation with the styles of baits we've talked about here. Starting out with the stick bait, and then going to that lipless crankbait, and then going to a creature bait. And I found a lot of success, not just catching numbers of bass, but nice bass all through the summer, employing this technique. Does it always work? No, because nothing works all the time. You guys know that. But I'd say 7 times out of 10, so about 70% of the time, I find pretty good success starting out the day with this kind of system, if you will, and going through this sequence of baits in a little bit of depth zone here. And when I say depth, we're not talking much. Usually I'm targeting fish in the 1 to 6 foot range. So very skinny water down to about 6 feet, which is still really shallow. And I think you'll be surprised if you've tried those shallow baits, how much you'll find that those fish stay there, stay shallow throughout the summer months, because everybody thinks they're moving to the ledges and the deeper creek channels and stuff, and they do. There are a certain amount that do that, but there is a bigger amount than I think guys give them credit for that stay shallow year round. Hopefully this will help you guys catch those fish. So I hope this video gave you some information you can use to help improve your summertime fishing. If it did, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, I'm going to leave some links down below in the description of some videos I have that are specific to fishing these types of baits. I've got one for lipless crankbaits, stick baits, creature baits. So I'll leave some of those links down below if you guys want to check those out. Once again, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And remember, until that next video, get out there and fish.